Okay. Hereby call to order this meeting of the Board of Directors of Strategic Housing Finance Corporation. We are at 505 East Huntland Drive, Suite 220. And it is December 11th. This is our regular monthly meeting. The time is 11:03. Ms. Gray, could we do a roll call?
Hello.
Oh, thank you.
President Jan Winnick.
Present.
First Vice President Keisha Prince.
Here.
Second Vice President Ashley Hulseth.
Here.
Director Julio Gonzalez Altamirano.
Present.
Director Terry Dorman.
Here.
Director B. Arce.
Here.
And Future Director Katherine. Thank you.
We have confirmation of quorum.
Yes, we have confirmation of quorum.
Thank you so much. As you look at your agenda today, folks, I just want to, without objection, change the order slightly on action item 6B, the authorization for our ED, Ms. Gray's performance-based compensation, will now appear after executive session, at the very end of our agenda, so that we have a chance to benefit from that discussion on personnel matters. Hearing no objection, that's the new order. Do we have any citizen communication today?
No, not at this time. Kevin, can you confirm that there's no one online?
He's confirmed.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin. With that, we're on item 3 now, an administrative item. This is the item to swear in our newest appointee from the Travis County Commissioners Court. Her name is Katherine Gross. And Katherine, if you'll join me up here, we'll stand and you can repeat after me. Hold on one sec. I have one that's actually nicely parsed. Okay. I, Katherine Gross.
I, Katherine Groves,
Do solemnly affirm that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered,
do solemnly affirm that I have not directly or indirectly paid, offered,
promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value,
promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value,
or promised any public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote at the election,
or promised any public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote at the election
at which I was elected, or as a reward to secure my appointment.
at which I was elected, or as a reward to secure my appointment.
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas and Travis County,
In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas and Travis County,
I, Katherine Groves,
I, Katherine Groves,
do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of a director of the board
do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully execute the duties of a director of the board
at Strategic Housing Finance Corporation of Travis County, and will do the best of my ability
of the Strategic Housing Finance Corporation of Travis County, Texas, and will do the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and the state of Texas.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and the state of Texas.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
Speech.
Maybe we should add that. I just do want to add that with that, we have a fully constituted 7-member board of directors for the first time in quite a long time. So we are strong. Okay. Moving on to the director's report, item 4 on our agenda. Chair invites Ms. Gray to present her monthly report.
Welcome, directors. Just a couple of quick updates. First of all, we have had a retirement since we last met. Debbie Honeycutt. Last day was last Friday. So we gave her a nice small send-off as she requested. We will be passing around a card if you guys would like to send a note to Miss Honeycutt. So sad to see her go, but are already in the process of interviewing for the next executive coordinator. We'd also like to congratulate Ms. Anna Martinez, who has been promoted from affordable housing assistant to portfolio finance analyst. And recognition of the value she's really brought to our work in looking in particular at financials and with her audit background on our portfolio. So I'm really happy to acknowledge that. We, just letting you know, we will be closed on the 24th and 25th of this month, as well as Christmas Eve and New Year's Day. We will have in our email signatures sort of a emergency number to call if you should need anything or hear from anyone else. And then just an update on office move, continuing to see work upstairs. Possible that work will be done in January. At present, we think we likely would have our January board meeting here and then make the move between January and February. Looking forward to it. Our first board meeting of the year is pretty early in January. It is on the 8th, so be looking for that. And want to remind you that we do have a couple of site visits on the 13th. We will be visiting William Cannon and South Park Ranch, which are a couple of our longer tenured properties. If you would like to attend, reach out to me, let me know. We're happy to have you, but we want to make sure if we have quorum, we post for it.
Ms. Gray, what time of day is that?
Tuesday, the 13th at 11.
And how long do you expect it to take?
They're scheduled from 11 to 1:30.
Thank you.
And they're both south
Yeah.
of the river.
Excellent. So I'm going to provide, first of all, a recap of financials at the end of October. As you know, our reporting lags a little bit. At the end of October, from a cash standpoint, we were quite liquid with about 26 months in reserve, not including the Housing Production Fund, which we don't count. So that includes both our cash in our operating account as well as unallocated cash in tax pool. I will note that we board voted to create the portfolio fund in October, so it had not been done at the time of this report. So roughly that about $4 million in unallocated cash in tax pool we will be showing in a board designated fund going forward. In terms of year-to-date income and expenditures, as has been the pattern for most of this year, we have been well over our projected revenue, sitting at the end of October at 200%, but much of that came from a single transaction early in the year, Silver Springs, and so that without that we would have been sitting at 39% of projected revenue. And at 70% of annual year-to-date budget on expenditures, which primarily relates to some of our ramp-up with hiring earlier in the year. This 39% number is important because I would also like to share with you some exciting and positive news, which is that while we have not completed the financials for these 2 months, since the end of the October the financial close, we have received a couple of significant developer fees that had been pending, such that now, not including Silver Springs, we are at 106% of the revenue that we projected for the year.
Thank you. That's great. When did those come in?
We received several transactions in November and then a handful so far in December. So these numbers are accurate through end of day yesterday.
Wow, thank you.
But the largest one
Largest
last
one was
week.
December, I want to say the 5th.
Yeah.
Great.
So, yes.
That's great news. That is fantastic.
Way to come in under the line, right? And so one thing I would point out is, as I looked at this and thought about, of course, it's been the subject of some anxiety over the course of the year. There were three things that were really a drag on our revenue. One was operations. Obviously, our portfolio is struggling. Cash flow is less than it would typically be, and so we're not seeing as much revenue from the portfolio. But we also, as you may recall, we adjusted for risk when we were budgeting for this year, and so we had anticipated that. And in fact, our revenue from our operating portfolio that comes from basically from cash flow we're about where we thought we would be. The area where we really didn't make it is, unsurprisingly, we didn't end up having closings. And so we had about $1.7 million in anticipated funding from new deals that dried up. Had a very robust pipeline at the beginning of the year, but HB 21 really put a damper on that. And so what has happened here is that we had also hedged our bets on developer fee because, it is sort of fundamentally risky. They're milestone fees that they either come or they don't, right? It's, a yes, no, and not much in between. So we had pulled back on our projection of developer fee received. We, in fact, did receive that, and that made up for some of the new deals that we did not see this year. We also had a higher interest earning level than we had originally budgeted. So very relieved, I think, to end the year this way. All right, that concludes Director's report. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for Ms. Gray at this time on her director's report for December? Hearing none, we'll proceed on with our consent agenda. There are 3 items on our consent agenda for unanimous consent today. There are minutes from November 13th, a resolution to ratify employee benefit contract renewal, and a resolution on amending the grant agreement with Buen Samaritano. When there are no objections, this agenda is approved without vote. Are there any objections? Does anyone wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as listed on our consent agenda. We're moving on to action items now, number 6, and we have an action item A, providing guidance on priority use of the board-designated housing production fund, which was just part of our report from Director Gray. We invite Director Gray again to present on this item.
Thank you, President.
And Alex.
Yes, I have before you a resolution providing guidance to staff on the uses for our housing production fund, and presenting will be Director of Real Estate, Alex Radke.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Really excited to be before you today to talk about our next steps with the Housing Production Fund. And so the resolution you'll be voting on today is going to give staff guidance on how we actually deploy those funds. But first I want to start with just a quick reminder that the Housing Production Fund is an already created board designated fund that we have fully funded already at this point to its $15 million target, as you just saw in the director's report. The purpose of the Housing Production Fund is to maximize strategic aim, as well as, at this point, given sort of the current market, unstick prospective deals, since it's been a slow year for some larger macro reasons. One other thing I will throw in there, though, is we do hope that the Housing Production Fund can be used in some ways to mitigate our existing portfolio risks, which, as a reminder from our previous annual portfolio report, sort of 2 of the biggest risks that we identified is, 1, we have an extreme concentration of units at the 60% MFI level, and so hoping to get some deals that have a wider array of affordability in them. And then second, we have a pretty concentrated portfolio geographically speaking. So also helping to potentially use this to get some deals that help us with geographic dispersion of the portfolio. And then finally, as a reminder, this fund did get created in 2024, and we are now following up with kind of, as I said, direction on how we will deploy this. As far as the process that got us to the resolution you'll see before you today, I'm going to walk y'all kind of quickly through that. The real estate committee members will be very familiar with this because we've been meeting with them very regularly this year as we've developed the guidelines you'll see in the resolution. So first, when we think about using the Housing Production Fund, staff wanted to set some criteria around the tool we were going to create. And the top 3 things that kind of rose up for us is, this is our Get Deals Done tool, but for having this tool, that deal wouldn't come to us as a partner or just wouldn't be able to move forward. So that's probably the most important criteria. Secondly, we did want to view this tool as a revenue generating tool with the expectation of at least moderate returns, which is to say this would not just be a grant program, which would have been a different sort of look or approach. And then finally, particularly considering how our pipeline dried up this year, we wanted something that we could implement fairly quickly, and that would be relatively straightforward, so that we could get these funds out the door, get these deals moving. Based on that criteria, Director Gray then created sort of a pretty extensive list that we talked through with REC on all the different types of financing tools that we could look at, and they kind of fell into 3 different categories, which was lending, investment, and subsidy. We narrowed that down to really 2 specific tools, which was subordinate soft loans, subordinate meaning that it would be a loan that's paid after the permanent financing or construction financing on a project, and soft in the sense that it would be cash flow dependent. So if the project has cash flow to pay the loan at that point in time, we would receive payment, otherwise it would accrue until there is cash flow to repay. And then we also wanted to look at a model where we potentially use the Housing Production Fund as an equity tool. So we took those 2 tool types and did some different stakeholder interviews, which I'll go over those findings here on the next slide. And then based on that stakeholder feedback, we honed in on a single tool, which is the subordinate soft loan model or tool type, and did a couple different financial models, one on what we think a typical 4% LIHTC deal might look like that would utilize this, and then what a typical mixed income deal might look like. Next slide, please. Overall, in the stakeholder outreach, we interviewed 8 different stakeholders, which was a mixture of current development partners, prospective development partners, some housing finance consultants, and then Texas Housing Conservancy, which is a group that specializes in equity investment in the affordable housing space. What we heard overall is that really the biggest challenge right now is getting equity to do a deal in Austin based on the very soft market we have, since we have such an incredible amount of new supply coming on. The rough gap that many of these deals were seeing was around $3 to $6 million. And then when we asked, kind of looking at those different tools that I outlined to y'all, what would be the tool that would really get a deal going? Almost across the board, what we heard was a subordinate soft repayable loan. And this goes right back to that biggest financial challenge, which was that a number of developers said, hey, look, if I have a gap award in place, that's going to really help me with my equity conversations and locking that in. And so, and then also obviously just being able to actually have the full financial stack to move a deal forward. The other thing that I think I want to highlight for y'all is why I think the soft repayable loan format really came up a lot is that for those who are familiar with the City of Austin's Rental Development Assistance Program, or RODA, the program's been around for over 10 years and has distributed over hundreds of millions of dollars in soft loan funds to affordable housing projects within the City of Austin. It's a widely known tool for developers who work in the area, and so I think for a lot of them, essentially kind of suggesting replicating a tool that's already pretty familiar both to the developers and the equity partners would make for kind of an easier path forward. Next slide, please. On our modeling, I just want to kind of run quickly through some of the assumptions we had, and then we'll get into sort of some hypotheticals about what do we think it would look like based on these assumptions for us to be distributing awards next year. But on the 4% LIHTC deals, we assumed a award of around $4 million that would get invested at the close of construction. We did put in a 7% interest rate right now. That comes from comparing what it would look like to just keep the Housing Production Fund monies in our current corporate investment account, which I don't remember the exact.
Around 5%. Yeah,
which is currently around 5%.
Yep.
7% is actually also something that we heard as being from at least 2 different developers, that that's something that they could potentially get comfortable with. And we did assume that the full loan would get paid off at the very latest by the time the project would refinance, which generally in a LIHTC project would be somewhere between years 12 to year 15. Earlier I had mentioned strategic aim is an important part of our mission with HPF, and so we, running through kind of looking at our prospective pipeline of LIHTC deals, came to kind of a guesstimate that a strategic aim for a typical LIHTC deal would be just around 11,000, which would be a very significant kind of contribution to our strategic aim goals. On the waterfall side, just to kind of help with sort of, as I said, this would be a subordinate loan product. We wouldn't expect the soft loan to get paid out above the debt service or mortgage. And because this would still be folded in, obviously, with the other kind of partnership fees and financial structure, we would assume that our ground lease, which is a partnership fee, would get paid hopefully first on the cash flow waterfall. Then any deferred developer fee, which is very important that gets paid on a LIHTC deal. And after that would be when our, if there's additional funds that would go towards paying down the HPF loan. Next slide, please.
Alex, or any board members that feel, would it be useful to give a very quick overview of what strategic aim is?
Thank you.
I would love it if the chair of the real estate committee.
Oh, well,
Yes.
Oh, okay, sure.
I
Particularly
recognize
given
Director
that we have a
Altamirano.
Okay, I was trying to conserve my total airtime minutes.
Yeah.
So these
We
do
will
not,
subtract this
these
from
do
your
not
total.
count against me,
Yes,
because
sir.
I thought we were gonna fly through this. All right.
I did.
So, for the public, as well as directors new and old, whenever we face a resource allocation decision, we face the following conundrum. What is good? What is best? How do we decide? We cannot use something as crude as units, because 305 units would always be better than 300 units. But what if those 305 units are in a place that does not have transit access, or amenities, or parks, or stinks? Just stinks. What if the 300 or the 280 or the 250 are in a place that provides better overall opportunity, quality of life, and well-being to the residents? How can you make those comparable? And so we, through the power of math and thinking, developed a system by which we could be able to, as best as we could, because it's not perfectly fungible, compare and derive a sense of quality. Through that, we have a sense of affordability impact. And the goal of this enterprise is to cost effectively generate affordability impact. Because if it was just units, we may fund a lot of bad units. And if it's just a threshold of, it's got to be perfect, it's got to meet a checklist of criteria, which oftentimes we are crudely given, it has to be this, 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 then we would never do any units, and there would be no affordability impact. So in a world where we have scarce resources in terms of dollars, staff time, board attention, political will to abate, which is our superpower, we have to focus on using our resources to create the most impact. And then for our new director, we have not only that as a tool, but in order to evaluate ourselves as an enterprise fairly, because we exist in a market environment driven by public-private partnerships, we created a production forecast system. And you may know this already or you may not, but its inaugural year, when we look at market factors for next year, in brief, the market looks bad for production because of macro factors, micro factors, and driven by objective, verifiable data. So we face a challenge because part of what we want to be is countercyclical. If the market is providing a lot of housing, right, then the need for our intervention is less because there's no market failure. But now we're entering a situation where the market is not providing housing, and yet people are still facing affordability constraints, even though rents are in many situations declining, even though occupancy issues are giving renters market power. We want to be able to push. Moreover, our own economics depend on transactions. And so when we look at something like the HPF, what we're trying to do is act countercyclically to produce cost-effective aim, understanding that it is a tough market environment. That's where this tool fits in. Ta-da.
And Director Altamirano, do you want to say something about the difference between counting units and bedrooms?
Yes, I can do that, Madam President. So, a unit, obviously, if you think about it, in the discussions here locally, there's a lot of emphasis on, oh, I wish we had 3 bedrooms. Oh, I wish we had 2 bedrooms. To be able to differentiate the value of those, you've got to make a determination of what is a 3-bedroom worth to you in terms of subsidization and prioritization relative to a studio. If we go back to the crude idea of 300 units, 300 studios, in our estimation, are not as valuable as 280 mix of studios, 1 BRs, 2 BRs, and a 3 BR in there. Moreover, a 3-bedroom at a deep affordability level is incredibly valuable relative to a studio at a deep affordability level. In this work, we were influenced by a UT professor, Jake Quegman, and one of the basic things he says, units and bedrooms roughly align with people. Mm-hmm. And so we're ultimately trying to serve people. Mm-hmm. We're trying to provide affordability. People, grown-ups, seniors, children, and so bedrooms align with helping more people. If we go back to the idea of this enterprise uses its resource, its attention, and its people, this board is a machine for translating our hours and attention into cost-effective affordability impact. It makes sense that we would value more bedrooms that help more people differently than a studio. And I mean, you obviously have a lot of experience, and some of you have gained painfully this experience along with me. Oftentimes, in policymaking determination, a unit is considered a unit, yeah, and a studio is considered as useful as a 2BR, a 1BR, etc. There's been more granularity to our system, and the conversations that you will have will reveal those to you, but that's sort of the basic idea behind it. And with that, I believe I have offered enough so that we may proceed on this item.
Yeah,
yes.
No, I really wanted to drive that point home about the number of people impacted.
Please continue.
Ms. Radke.
So this next slide is showing kind of what we're modeling on a typical workforce or mixed income deal, which was a little bit of a lower award at $3.5 million, but otherwise fairly similar assumptions. The two differences I want to call out are that on our workforce deals, we do see refi assumptions happening much earlier than we would on a LIHTC deal. To be conservative, we had refinance happening at year 8, which again, we would require that if there are enough refinance proceeds to pay off the loan, that the loan would be paid off at that time. And in our modeling, there would be. And then I do also want to point out, which shouldn't be a surprise, that the strategic aim average for a workforce deal is around 5,000, which is just under half of what we would expect on a typical LIHTC deal. Most of that is due to the fact that our workforce deals are going to just have a lot less deeper affordability than a typical LIHTC deal. And then otherwise on the kind of payout schedule, it's somewhat similar in the sense that we would still expect the partnership strategic fees, like the ground lease admin fee, to get paid out first in the waterfall. Then there would be preferred equity payout, and then after that, the soft loan payout on the waterfall. Next slide, please. So, what does this all mean, or what could it mean for strategic as an organization if we move forward with this? We think that the guidelines we provided to y'all and the modeling that we've done demonstrates that we could probably close about 4 deals next year using the existing $15 million in the Housing Production Fund. We're estimating that to be 2 LIHTC deals with $4 million gaps apiece, and then 2 workforce deals with $3.5 million gaps apiece. That would end up meaning that just based on closing proceeds alone, we would estimate receiving around $2.8 million in 2026. And then in subsequent years, we would be getting partnership fees, and then as cash flows available, payback on the soft loan. These all assume a 7% interest rate at this time, which again could shift, as interest rates shift in the coming year. And then finally, when thinking about replenishment of the fund itself, I will show you, we've got a schedule here that shows that we would expect already by year 5 to have enough funds that have come back in for us to put out another award, and that the full $15 million would get paid back by year 12. Now this is, I just want to call out, this is assuming that we didn't put any additional income into the Housing Production Fund, which I think is unlikely. So I think we would probably have, hopefully from restructuring and developer fee payouts on our existing portfolio, enough funds in 2027 already to start doing additional awards. But we just wanted to show kind of what things would look like just based on the initial pot of money that we're using. Next slide. So coming back to the resolution you're voting on today, hopefully you'll have read it. I'm not going to go into every single line-by-line detail, but what the resolution provides is guidance to us as staff on sort of what are the general loan terms that we want to lay out to potential awardees. This includes the amount, which we are expecting to cap at $5 million, but be targeting lower awards as possible. Having that competitive interest rate with what it would look like to otherwise just have that money sit in our investment account. And then having those kind of repayment timelines around, being paid out of cash flow, having refi have to cover and repay the loan in full if proceeds are sufficient. We also have target project criteria in there. As I've shared, we would be looking to maximize strategic aim where possible, which it looks like will most likely mean trying to target first LIHTC deals over workforce deals. And then finally, we would be coming back to the real estate committee by the end of March with draft loan docs and plans for the administration and servicing of loans. Next slide, please. So if y'all pass the resolution today, that will end up meaning that we, as staff, should have those kind of template documents and internal processes set up and approved this coming spring. We would start doing outreach to our potential pipeline candidates where we think they would be a good fit, and start doing some underwriting, seeing where their gap is, talking with them about loan terms. For individual loans, we would get a draft loan doc put together that will get reviewed by a real estate committee, and with their approval then move forward to the board for the board to vote on each individual loan award. I do want to note that the actual funds would of course not get dispersed until a deal closes, and there would be a 1-year expiration date that if a deal is awarded, receives an award but does not close within a year, then that award would expire. And that is all I have today. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Rocky and Ms. Gray. So before we look into, I want to start with questions for clarification before we entertain a motion. Is there anybody who has areas of confusion? They want more data and/or clarification or definitions from our staff here to understand the resolution? Yes, Ms. Director Dorman.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very comprehensive and interesting. And thank you, Judy. So I'm looking at the actual resolution language. And it says, upon approval by the board for an individual property award, staff may make repayable loans. How does that work out as a practical matter? Do the actual terms come back to the board, or does this authorize staff to?
So the actual full draft loan document would go to REC first, and if REC gives their thumbs up, then it would go to the board.
Okay. And then I'm just curious, the Section 4 loan amounts, which you mentioned priority for projects requiring $3 million or less. Is there a reason for that?
I would say twofold, and this is a public meeting. One is that while we are putting a cap of $5 million, and that is public, we want to be clear with our development partners that that's not an automatic, you get $5 million when you ask for a housing production fund. We would like to try and have smaller awards where possible, and that would, if it's justifiable to go up above to 5, then we will make that recommendation to the board, but would prefer to see lower awards if possible.
And I totally agree with that, because we want to do as much as we can with the funds we have. So I thought that might be the reason. And that's it. Thank you.
Other questions or requests for clarification before we entertain a motion? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second for us to discuss this further.
Motion to adopt 2545.
Second.
And a second from Director Ashley Huddleston. It's open for discussion now and debate on the merits. Would anybody like to speak to the importance and/or the risks in this? No, we had a very thorough presentation. So with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions? That's a unanimous vote. Moving on to action item B, which we have actually relocated to the end of our agenda. We are now on item 7, our discussion items. A, the 2025 board self-evaluation is first up. And for that, the chair recognizes VP Huddleston, who is going to walk us through the results of our board survey, which I believe had 100% response rate, which is, there's lots of data here. Did you want Bella at the table, or are we okay? Come on up, Bella. Bella Corman has assembled this data, ran the survey, worked with every director on questions as they were completing the survey, and thank you so much for your excellent support work. Director Huddleston.
Thank you. Like Jan said, we had gotten 100% participation, and I'd like us to explore this together as a conversation. And so we can start off with overall performance. We scored a 4.27 out of 5 between agree and strongly agree on overall board effectiveness. So let's start with this. Does that feel right to you? How do we feel about how 2025 went? And does a 4.27 capture everyone's overall experience?
So the floor is open to directors to discuss how this went for you individually. I will put a quick caveat in here. We're today not going to rewrite any of the elements of this. If there are proposals, we're going to take them in writing after the meeting and get them to the new executive committee in January. But we are interested in anybody who wants to contribute to a conversation about how it went, because this would be the time to weigh in. Any comments? No comments. Go on.
Hearing none, we'll go over the strengths first. Our top scoring areas were relationships with commissioners' courts, understanding fiduciary responsibilities, Open Meeting Act compliance, and long-term sustainability decisions. And our two strongest categories were governance and mission alignment, when we see that in the green, and strategic impact in the yellow. I'm curious, does any of these strengths surprise anyone? And what do you think is driving these high scores? Particularly, what worked well that led us to these high scores this year with the Commissioner's Court, so that we can repeat that for next year?
I think there was
Director Doorman, yes.
There was a lot of interaction with the Commissioner's Court, and I think we were proactive, and I think although they are very, very busy, they typically make time for us, and I think that that's a good thing to do, to continue that collaboration.
Awesome. Was there any thing that might have blended easier to make meetings with the Commissioners Court? Any tips or tricks you?
I thought it worked out well.
Would other directors like to weigh in on their contact? Yes, Director Arce, sorry.
I didn't have the same experience.
Please.
I don't know if it was scheduling or I've only met 2 out of the 5, so yeah.
That is notable. And I think we can follow up on that this year under my chairmanship, so note taken. Others on their experience interacting with our Commissioners Court appointers on this, whether it was on a scheduled meeting around an item coming up before them that we wanted to meet with them about, or just a one-on-one introductory after being appointed. All right, I think we have a follow-up item. Continuing on.
When we talk about governance and mission alignment and strategic impact, one of you wrote, the board has excellent nonviolent communication and maintains a respectful, thoughtful tone even when discussing complex issues. So really wanting to highlight that, I think that for me is also a strength of the board. Is there anything that stands out to you on ways we could memorialize that and continue into next year?
So we have an identified strength here, and we want to see how we can keep it going. Is there anything people want to point to that was helpful or supportive of this strength?
Really knocking it.
That's why we did the survey, though. You got lots. You got lots.
Weigh in.
What did you say?
I said she should feel free to weigh in.
Oh, my
This
goodness.
predates me, so.
Yeah, this is not,
I'm learning.
I respect your staying on, the sideline here. Continuing on.
All right, so we'll move into improvement areas. The lowest scoring category was operations and structures at a 3.83. And with that, 3 specific areas stood out. So workload appropriateness. Comments mentioned heavy workload, workflow inefficiencies, and document management issues. Does anyone have any feedback on how we could improve this next year? We do have a new board member, so we can start to spread some of the does anyone have anything that they want to point out? Our meetings, our committee meetings at a good cadence? Do we wish to improve the cadence of committee meetings?
I'm going to ask Director Huddleston to weigh in on this. She sits on a record number of committees and also is at every board meeting at this, and wondering if there's something you noticed about either information flow, any of the items that you want to explain to both new directors and old about things you're thinking about for the future.
Yeah, for me personally, I wonder if anyone else shares this. Our method for getting the board packet and then posting comments on the form before meetings is a little strenuous. Just given time wise, doing that in a week, finding the time to do that. So I'm wondering if anyone also is finding that difficult and or has suggestions to maybe figure out how to get comments in prior to board meetings.
Okay, so for soliciting board input prior to a meeting, so we're not legislating from the dais or, spending time in meetings, but ahead of meetings, preparing and vetting our questions. If people have top of mind suggestions on this at the moment, please speak now.
The only thing I can think of is maybe calendar deadlines.
What would that look like? Director Arce, what are you picturing?
I don't know, just a date and an actual time by this date, by this time. but
Okay.
I don't know how it would be. That's the only thing I can think of.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
So a longer time. Okay. Others? Director Dorman.
I think to me, it kind of dovetails with the question on the frequency and duration of board meetings. And I'm just reviewing some of the responses, and we have really full agendas. But I also understand the board book can't go out too far in advance because things change. So perhaps more familiarity with the forum might help solve some of our issues, because a lot of times I don't take the time to go on the forum, but I can see in hindsight it would be helpful. So maybe we could really start utilizing the forum to both ask questions, to get in touch with one another and staff.
Thank you, Director Dorman. I think that it was well utilized during the budget process and also during the
Yes.
resolution on ethics and expenditures by staff. There was rigorous
Yes.
conversation, and I think it did help move the process forward on those items. Other comments on efficiencies and or preparation time for directors to be prepared for a board meeting? And this is not the last call.
You can think about it.
You can write comments to Director Huddleston, CC me at this point, and we'll see what we can bring back in 2026 under a new XCOM.
Yeah, and to piggyback off what Director Dorman and you were saying about the budgets, having those office hours was really helpful. And yeah.
That's
You know.
true. Where's Miss Adams? Miss Adams, do you want to describe what she did that was highly utilized?
Yes, so Katie did a fantastic job at walking everyone through the budget. She gave really good insight onto if something was changing, why it was changing. Was there to ask, we could ask any questions that we had. And I think that made the whole budgeting process go a lot smoother, and also made sure that if we did have concerns that they were addressed. So I thought that was very
Thank you so much, Director Huddleston.
So maybe one of the things to retain is that prior to a discussion and then a later vote on the budget, we would have directors in pairs, not in full quorum, on Teams meetings with what is your title?
Director of Finance and
Director of
Administration,
Finance and
Katie Adams.
Administration. There you go.
Treasurer.
Our treasurer.
And board treasurer.
I
So
was
sorry.
I wasn't sure which one to use there.
I'd like to use as many as I can.
Okay, all of those. And just figure that in as part of the timeline, that as we're prepping that first discussion, the week or two before, pairs of directors are meeting with the treasurer ahead of time. If you have no questions, you get to hear somebody else's questions, and that's very helpful.
It's also very helpful, yes.
Okay. Other proposals will emanate later. We're not going to
Yes.
solve everything here.
And then one other thing I did want to touch on was, and we'll probably send out a poll after this, but just wanted to get some general feedback. Thursdays at 11, does that work well for everyone? Or are there times it might work?
So think about that,
Better.
and we will send a poll. In other words, it's year's end. We can reset the regularity of an 11 o'clock on the second Thursday to another time slot, morning, afternoon, different day. And we should get that poll out soon, because people start setting their calendars, I believe, well in advance when it comes to the change of the year. So if you know now that this is a headache and second Thursday at 11 o'clock is not going to work in 2026, just go ahead and get that email out to me and CC Director Huddleston now, and then we'll get that poll out as soon as possible.
Perfect. And then we can kind of move into some themes from the comments. Theme 1 was governance versus management boundaries, and multiple people wrote about the disconnect between board governance and staff management. One person said that there's a disconnect between what staff takes on as management responsibilities and the scope of the board's governance authority. Any ideas on, or any feedback on how that went this year, and any ideas on how we could improve that in the future?
So we are on time, so I'm just going to say, if somebody would like to say more than they did in their response about this would be a great time for all ears, all the directors to hear you. And I also do want to bookmark that we do have a training coming up on this by our organizational consultant, Eileen Garcia. It will either be in January or soon thereafter. So the content of that can be influenced by your thoughts. And I think everybody's going to have an opportunity to meet with Ms. Garcia ahead of time. So I think this is a great item to be thinking about. I did not hear any additions to it or see any hands up for more comments. Is there more?
We can.
Do you have more? It's okay. Is there something more?
The other thing was training needs more a specific request for Robert's Rules of Order training, and then a training portal. Does anyone else feel that they need a Robert's Rules of Order training? Just me. Okay.
There's Director Arce saying yes, and in our past we have done that, and it may not have captured all the new appointees, so I think that that's relevant, very relevant, and XCOM has communicated that to staff as well, so staff has it on their list. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Was there anything else critical, and if so, definitely available for a conversation with any of you, and if not, we can wrap there.
Oh, I just want to, if I may have the floor,
Director
Madam
Tomorrow.
President. Yes, thank you.
Your clock is ticking.
So I just have one very granular request for my last year on the board. So I did this math, and guess how many people I've served on the board with in the time that I've been here?
13.
A lot.
Different than
14 people.
distinctly different
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, plus the 2 Hatsy chairs when we had to deal with that.
Oh.
So in the time that I've been on the board, there's all these new folks, and so one of the things that's always been challenging is it's not a class. You don't all call together. And the granular request is, as we consider potential website redesign and we come in with a new tool for posting agendas, etc. I think 4 years ago I would have felt shy about being very pushy about having a online, always on digital portal for onboarding. But 4 years later, especially after looking at the body count and looking at the just when people join and the asynchronous nature of technology, people being comfortable with asynchronous tools, the digital tools, I think it'd be really cool. I think all of us have had the experience of going and doing our TOMA training with the little web video, but that works.
It does.
You know, and we all share it.
Yeah.
We all know what we're talking about. And so similarly, having our version of that simple. I'm not saying let's spend 200 grand on it. I'm saying let's have the same documents, the same PowerPoints. Like for example, I don't know what Ms. Groves has gotten, and so if I don't want to share a bunch of stuff without knowing what she's gotten, there's conversations we've had where we had consultants come, like Ms. Andre, right. That's right. Forgot about Dre. And you get that joke. And so, I'm just saying, because I saw you smirk.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I'm perplexed. You said it.
No, you said it. I saw you. So I wish people could see that, in an organized fashion where it's like, hey, you just came on, go here, here's all this stuff.
That's a great idea, which is why we did it.
Okay, and so that would be really neat if we could develop that tool into a coherent tool. It may already exist, is what you're saying, but that would be my
Posted to the public as well as new appointees, or what are you saying?
If it's visible to the public, it's easier for the person coming in.
Even an applicant?
Moreover, me, an applicant, that's a different thing. But absolutely for the prospective people to see, oh, this is all the material, and also for me to go back. Right now
To revisit.
I gotta go and find the video on the website.
Yeah.
That is gonna get easier too. But just the online onboarding, shared materials portal, I think is a good thing to check off.
What about a liaison?
Say more. That's interesting. Say more.
Okay, Director Ursay?
More like a onboarding liaison, somebody that already knows all these processes, somebody that already
Like a
holds
mentor.
all the tools, all the links and everything, and onboards you one-on-one, as opposed to getting different feedback and different directive from different people. Like a go-to.
Okay, there is examples of that in other nonprofits where you have not just the ED or the chair available to you, but actually an assigned mentor. So that's an interesting point as well. And I saw our Executive Director, Gray, nodding that there's a portal underway, or do you want to describe feasibility on this briefly? We're not putting you on the spot.
No, it's fine. Two things. One, we have made significant progress in our onboarding, and would love to hear from Director Groves sort of how she's experiencing it. But also, we are in the process of implementing Civic Plus which is primarily for agenda management, but it has both a public and a private version. So, for example, we right now expect to use it for committees, which are not, so those agendas won't be publicly posted. And I think it would be fairly easy to have all onboarding docs in the same place. We could figure out how to do it. So I think we will, because I agree, I think that our process is improved. I give us a B+ maybe right now, but we do it, and then we have to renew it every time, and we don't really provide the resource to go back to. Yeah.
Oh no, it's so much better. My onboarding process during COVID was like flying into a black screen, being like, "Hello to your meeting. Here's the committee you've been assigned to." So yeah, we're far away from that, and I think we can continue to improve. But I think it ends up having an impact on a bunch of these issues we've talked
I
about.
agree. What I'm hearing is it's feasible, it's desirable, and we have unity of will around this, so that's great. Moving on to discussion item B, Public Workers Preference Program update. Chair recognizes our Executive Director Gray and staff Jim Ward.
Excellent. Directors, we are giving a brief update on our work on public workers' preference this year. For reasons that Jim Ward, Director of Planning and External Affairs, will share with you. This has gone a little more slowly this year than we anticipated, but we have made some significant progress, that we want to share with you and just talk about then what's to come.
Great, thank you, Executive Director Gray. As our Executive Director mentioned, my name is Jim Ward, Director of Planning and External Affairs, and have been working with our real estate team to bring the public worker preference from inception to where it is today. And so in the interest of brevity, our public worker preference was originally conceptualized as a specialized niche for Strategic Housing Finance Corporation as a line of business. The goal here is to return value to the taxing entities of Travis County in the form of preferences for their workers. So it is targeting public workers that are employed by the taxing entities of the county. And so I think one of the things that's really exciting about the way that we've kind of envisioned it thus far is that all public workers employed by a county entity are eligible for benefit, albeit not at the same level necessarily as someone who might be entering a rent-restricted unit. And so this is applicable specifically to our workforce projects, which you are probably aware. As of right now, there are two. One residence is at Ruby, which is the subject of the pilot that we'll talk about in just a moment. But essentially, partners will commit to a combination of incentives and concessions and proactive marketing in exchange for points toward their public benefit analysis, which can be used against HFC fees, et cetera. And so next slide, Kevin. When we started the public worker preference, we wanted to just kind of talk through a little bit of the challenges that we've seen, some of the stuff that we've been able to accomplish this year. Of course, we are all aware of the soft multifamily residential development market, challenges with HB 21. We have, I think, our pipeline has dwindled considerably over the past year, specific to workforce developments that had originally signaled their intent to prioritize public workers, notably without any specific guidelines as to what they were committing to. And so when staff arrived earlier in 2025, there were a number of documents and needed decisions that needed to be made to operationalize the public worker preference as we had conceptualized it, to include things like applicant guidelines, template partnership agreement documents, marketing guidelines. The list kind of goes on and on depending on what the development. And so one of the things that we focused our energy on was ensuring that our efforts were informed by our partners. So we spent a fair amount of time with the folks at Residences at Ruby prior to their close earlier this summer, incorporating their feedback into our proposals, and wanted to make sure that what we were proposing was doable and also verifiable for our compliance staff who will be monitoring the preference pilot over the next 12 months. And so we analyzed the subject developments at the time. I think that was Midtown Highline, 5-1, and Residences at Ruby, looking at the cost of commitment versus the benefit that the organization might achieve at varying levels, and landed, I think, on a structure that we'll look at in the coming slides that represents essentially what they have committed to, which is at pilot one additional point toward their public benefit analysis. And so we are prepared to launch the public worker preference pilot with Residences at Ruby today. Staff have been in contact with the notional developer and their current property management company. You may or may not be aware that they are in the process of identifying a new property management company, and so that will kind of take place over the coming weeks and months. And so we are, in addition to this approach to public worker prioritization, exploring additional approaches to support this board priority, and we'll talk about that a little bit on the coming slides. And so what you see on the screen here, and I apologize that they've gotten cut off at the bottom. You're not missing anything except for the words "if underperforming." And so essentially for the pilot, again, worth 1 point, what we're looking at is reserving 25% of the units at the property for public workers, requiring a marketing plan that is property specific, site specific, that is developed in partnership with our staff, but is reviewed by our staff before being implemented. And essentially, we're looking at stacked concessions, which are comprised of waived rent and application and admin fees. We are monitoring these developments until they are 25% leased, or to public workers, or until 1 year has passed. And initially, we are not requiring developers to hold units for public workers unless at the 6-month mark they are underperforming as to their progress toward the required 25% units held for public workers. Next slide is actually shows the current public worker preference, which is 2 points. This, you maybe remember, we revisited our underwriting terms earlier this year in August, I believe, or July or August, and increased the public worker preference to 2 points. And so with Jackson Embry, our development analyst, he and I kind of sat down with the numbers and looked back. I think what we're asking of developers is still kind of a front end benefit. We're not looking at like an ongoing reservation of units per se. And so we would ask that developers hold 50% of their units toward, for public workers with all the same concessions for that first year.
Can I quickly interject? Just, I think as we talk about points, both for Director Groves and as a reminder to the rest of directors, when we are doing a workforce project, we require that the public benefit ratio, if you will, be at least 90. In other words, that we can identify value they're giving away, they're providing, either in reduced rents, fees that are coming to us, et cetera, that is 90% of the estimated abated taxes we're giving. But one of the things we've done to advance some policy priorities is that conceivably you could provide 80% of that in dollar benefits, combined rents and fees, and then get up to 10 points by doing things like the public worker preference. We have some other, policy, transportation, et cetera. And so if you think about it, that point, those 2 points actually, if otherwise they would need to pay us that amount in fees, like there is actually a worth, right? There's an identifiable value of the point. And so then we compared that to what is the cost of the kind of concessions they're giving. And so I wondered, Jim, if you would talk a little bit about some examples of waived rent and app and admin fees and kind of, what kind of dollar value you might be looking at as we've thought about how different, and I assume, is there some flexibility for them about how they structure those?
Correct. Yeah, that was actually some of the feedback that we got from Notional, was that they wanted the flexibility to structure the waived rents in the way that made sense for their accounting team. I think we had originally conceptualized it as front end, and they wanted to spread that out over the course of the first lease term. And I think to your point about the value of the 1 point, it seems to be roughly translatable across properties regardless of size, and I would have to actually look back at the analysis, but I wanted to say it was I think for about $115,000 annually for residences at Ruby.
Okay, but we are comparing sort of you're waiving some rent, you're waiving an app fee, and this is, I think part of this is connected to that piece that Jim mentioned where it doesn't matter what your income is as a public employee. You may come to one of these projects and you might qualify for one of the income restricted units. We think many public employees will, but even if your income is above the level that allows you to access one of the income or the rent restricted units, you still would get some benefit by virtue of waived application fee and some reduced rents.
Next slide, please. And so I think where are we now? Of course, we closed on residences at Ruby last month. That went through on November 18th. We are assessing our outlook for 2026 for other developments that we can anticipate, approaching operations in 2026 that have signaled their intent for public worker preference. And then I think staff would recommend revisiting this at a board meeting in mid-2026, since we are significantly behind schedule, I think, to where we thought we might be with residences at Ruby in this kind of initial pilot. At this point, I think we had originally anticipated that this project would close sometime in the early summer, and then, of course, HB 21 happened. And so I think I mentioned earlier about some of the parallel approaches that we're exploring to include specific local partnerships with groups like Austin Community College, which is, of course, one of the larger taxing entities in the county, and then how we might explore linkage of public worker employees to specific units in the strategic portfolio. And with that, I think that is the extent of my public worker preference update. I'm available for any questions if there are any.
Thank you, staff. On this discussion item, The chair will recognize any director who wishes to make a comment, ask questions, or however you want to proceed. Director Arce.
When you say public workers, what all falls under that umbrella? I mean, obviously, police officers, firefighters.
So yeah, City of Austin employees, certainly. Any of the taxing entities is the way that we've conceptualized it right now. So that would be like the City of Austin, AISD, Travis County. There are, you may be aware, a number in the county with varying levels of employees. The main ones are going to be city, school district, community college,
Central Health.
Central Health. Central Health actually has fewer employees than you might imagine because they do a lot of their work via contract. So the folks like Integral Care are doing work for Central Health, but not necessarily Central Health employees.
But it's not just sort of first responders or teachers.
Correct.
It's not a class of employees. It's all employees. And I think also, maybe it helps to identify who we might not include. State employees would not be included here because it's not a property taxing entity, or even, an Integral Care, which is a quasi-governmental organization, but they're not a property taxing entity. So.
Thank you for your question, Director Arce. I've heard it from other directors, so that was very helpful. Director Dorman.
Thank you. So I'm not clear on the finance piece of it, sorry. So is it that they get the bonus point on the front end, so their developer fee is lower, and they use that to offset their waived rents and fees? Is it
Conceptually,
Is that
yes, and it is.
the big picture of it?
Yes, their overall fees over time, sort of the net present value, can be lower because they have claimed this bonus point to sort of get to a threshold which we would approve, and so in return, they are then agreeing to give these concessions to public workers over time.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes, Director Rose.
Yes, can you just clarify, I think you said it, I just want to make sure I understand. So the public worker preference would be just that initial kind of agreement that they enter into, the initial lease, and then there's not like an ongoing preference for ongoing
Correct.
leases.
It is not an evergreen set aside. It's not forever. And part of that is really about, there are two things. A, I think that's a much more significant compliance burden, right? But more to the point, when you do the math about the value that that sort of bonus point brings to the developer, it's really, that initial lease up will satisfy it. And so, in the future, if we really want something to be a long-term commitment for public workers, we'll have to think about other ways, right, to set aside the units and what other resources might be necessary. I think one example might be, as we build relationships with other jurisdictions who may have a particular concern about their own workforce, if you bring a parcel of land, for example, to the development, then, probably those numbers start to make more sense.
So it's a one-time commitment at the
It is structured currently as it's a one-time commitment, and it is at close, year following close. And for the pilot, we structured it with no penalty, but for subsequent, we're imagining that it may extend the period of compliance if they're underperforming.
Thank you.
What was the last part of your? I'm a little
Oh, I'm sorry.
hard of hearing.
For the pilot, the way that we've structured the partnership agreement, as I believe, is we didn't want to penalize a developer for not achieving the goal for the pilot, for purposes of the pilot, but for subsequent implementation, we had imagined that we would extend the period of compliance for underperformance. So in other words, if they don't hit their 25% mark with the 1 year, we would extend that, the period that we would expect that benefit.
Director Arce.
One more question. How does this overlay with fair housing rules if you are issuing since it's only for a protected group, right? Let's say you have two applicants at a property, one is a public employee, public worker, and the other one isn't. So when you have the non-public employee or worker asking why they get the concessions versus the other party.
Yep. I love this question. We get it a lot, and it's a great one because we care a lot about fair housing, right? Fair housing says you cannot discriminate or choose based on belonging to a protected class, because whether or not you are a public employee is not one of the protected classes. From a fair housing standpoint, it is generally acceptable to have that preference. Now, I will say two things. One, historically, fair housing has said if you have a preference that isn't sort of based on it's not about age, it's not about race, etc., but it has a discriminatory impact, that could still be a problem, right? As it happens, most people in protected, if you look at across the protected classes and you look at public employees, protected classes are actually probably overrepresented among public employees. So, rather than being discriminatory and giving less access to people in these protected classes, you are probably expanding access to housing for those protected classes. So that's subtle and it's kind of into the weeds, but it's sort of, and honestly right now the feds are not pursuing that much in any case, but I think we're well positioned there. The second thing is that Jim mentioned that we are doing this in our workforce properties only, and that is because in tax credit properties there is what's called the general use provision, which says, fair housing applies, of course, but outside of that you kind of can't pick and choose. It can't be for a special group that lives in this property. So that's why we're focused on the workforce.
Very helpful.
Great question.
Other discussion at this point? And then just to summarize again, something Mr. Ward said, this is a discussion. We'll hear more. You're projecting June 26th or before?
June, or likely June or slightly after, maybe July potentially.
By July?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll hear about this again. And there's Director Altamirano. Thank you for signaling me. I missed your signal if it was there.
Thank you, Madam President. This program is the result of our incorporation of this in our workforce deal terms back in December of 2023.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, we built our workforce terms, as you three may remember, with no help from anybody. And so we had to figure out how to create a framework for something that we thought would be a priority. In December of 23, here are a few things that were different. First, it was a very different lending environment. Two, we thought the mixed income housing tool, upon which this program ultimately depends on, was going to be a lot more favorable than it has become this year because of HB 21. Three, Pflugerville had just passed the bond to, in essence, create a teacher dorm so that they could recruit teachers who were very worried about housing. And part of the idea was, let's get on a way to creating a virtual version of that across what we would have anticipated were going to be the thousands of units of workforce housing that we were likely to be able to do the subsequent year. Those obviously have not materialized, even though many of us voted to create them because of market conditions, AB 21. We thought that the county, which some of us knew was going to do a TRE, might do a housing TRE. They went with childcare. And we thought that several kinds of stakeholders, when we came visiting and said, hey, we've got capacity and money to help you figure this out, do you want to figure out? We're going to be really excited about it. All of those items in different ways have not played out as we would have hoped or would have predicted. So Mr. Ward has really kind of found a way to extract blood from a stone in a really tough environment. The reason I'm saying this is because if you go back to the December 23 white paper that I wrote, about affordable homes for public workers, it talks about starting the scaffolding to set up that big idea. And I think one of the things that the board has to decide is not only, hey, is this program tracking what we expect and this particular implementation, which I think it will, because Mr. Ward is going to be very meticulous and put in energy. But I think that's my concern, which is we only have so much of Mr. Ward's time, Ms. Gray's time, we only have so much board time. Is what we are getting here relative to what we thought we were going to get when we started this or worth it? And so as we think about the discussion we want to have the next 6 months, I think one of the things we've got to think about is like, well, where does this fit in, given the assumptions at its original genesis? One thing I'm really curious about to hear is, what actually has happened to the Pflugerville teacher dorm? And so hopefully we'll hear a bit more about that next year as we ramp up the discussion. But there's sort of two questions that we've got to think about for when Mr. Ward comes back in 6 months. One, how does this narrow implementation work out? Two, what does the board think about the original big picture idea? Is it still something we want to do? Is it something we want to make the staff work on? Do we want to dedicate resources to making it happen? Is there even a market or interest for it? Because if not, then I do think we want to be thoughtful about what we're asking people to do. Mr. Ward, I think, knows that I feel really torn about it because I think he's put in a lot of work for something that might give us really very marginal, incremental wins if it's opening the door to something really big and fantastic. It makes sense. If we are just asking him to really try and find value where there isn't a lot to be had, then maybe we want to reconsider. I'm personally open to various of the directions. One of the things I've tried to be very clear with my colleagues on rec about, which is more relevant to those of you that are newer, is just because of the natural turnover of the board and my anticipated exit at the end of next year, the leadership that I would have been able to provide in 23, 24, and this year, just on the wane. And so I will not be able to do that kind of work. Plus, the court, the city are in a very different financial situation, and our macro environment has really changed. So how we assess what we want to do is different. I'm very passionate about the goal. I think if you cannot, there's nothing more strategic than delivering quality public goods for the people you live with. But I'm very concerned about whether we're in a good place to, as a board, make staff dedicate time and resources to doing it. So something for us to think about the next 6 months.
You've done so much.
Me? Oh, thanks.
It's true. It's true.
Well, not this. It feels like you didn't do it. So,
No,
thank you.
it was visionary and timely at the time, and things have changed. Could staff for our
Excuse me, President.
just a second,
I'm
I'll
sorry.
yeah, I see you. Thank you so much for being an advocate for Director Groves and my left side blindness. If staff would not mind sending around that original white paper just for reference, that would be really helpful. Director Groves.
I was just curious to know if we know how many public workers the portfolio currently serves, and if that's some impact metrics we could track. Like, is this preference, like, are we already hitting this, segment?
A quick response, we are over, and I think we do owe our council an update that we're behind the 12:30 start time by half an hour.
Short answer is no.
Yeah,
We're not
so with that in mind, do you need a second to send a text to our council and then respond to this question?
I mean, the short
We're on
answer.
it.
The short answer is no. That we are not.
We've got
tracking.
staff on it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, Mr. Ward.
Yes, the short answer is we're not tracking employment of status.
Public worker preference at this time.
Correct.
Okay.
Or across the
who the
portfolio.
employer of tenants are. We are arm's length, right, from the property management, or a couple arm's length, really. And while, I think it's on the application, nobody's really tracked it. So I think it would be difficult.
Anything more on our past vision for public worker preference, our current headwinds to accomplish that, and other priorities and contexts? We will be revisiting this summer, and Real Estate Committee will be in its new constitution under new direction and chairmanship. We'll also probably hear about this within the next 6 months. Can always opt to bring it back to the board before then, and/or a director can ask for that to happen as well. This was very fruitful. Thank you so much. So with that, we have completed our discussion items, and at this time, I want to explain that we are moving to entertain motions and seconds to move into executive session. That would be for items on executive session. Bullet point 1 would be for personnel matters, Texas Government Code annotated 551.074, and in executive session as well on item 2 to be considered under Texas Government Code annotated 551.071, consultation with our attorneys. Do I have a motion and a second to move into executive session for those purposes? We have a motion for Director Arce and a second from Director Huddleston. We are now going to ask to clear the room, take a brief break, and our first item is not with counsel, but our second one is. Reconvening in open session at 2:34 p.m. on December 11th. And for this, we do have a action item that we need to return to and finish our business today, and that is action item 6B, Resolution 2025-46. The motion is concerning Executive Director evaluation potential bonus. And under Section 1, Dianna Gray, as Executive Director of the corporation, will be awarded a percentage bonus in the amount of 7% of base salary for the year 2025. Section 2, this resolution has been approved and shall be in full force and effect from and upon its adoption. Do I have a motion and a second for this resolution?
So moved.
Second by Ashley. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, nay. And any abstentions?
Abstain.
One abstention. That concludes the business for this meeting. Unless anybody objects, we are adjourned. Yay. Thanks, guys. It's a lot of work today.